So you remember that one part in Solo, a Star Wars story? Oh, shut up. You know you watched it eventually. It's a Star Wars movie. It's even on Netflix now. Oh, by the way, you know that other thing you're having a tantrum over is on a track for $1 billion worldwide, and James Gunn got his job back. So good work with the boycotts, kiddo.
You stupid.
But okay, so Solo was fine, I thought. I had fun with it, whatever. Even the part that were dumb, kind of fun in a dumb way. Like that whole stretch when it just turns into a big western at the Spice Mines and they're just doing a shootout, that was my jam. Even that part where they're doing that really stupid fan service stuff, I was kind of hoping the side story movies weren't going to be about.
Whoa. I have never seen anyone do... What was that?
Terrace Kasi. Dryden taught me.
But hey, as fanservice-y jokes go, I kinda liked this one in the moment, because it's well-timed, funny enough, and it's mostly obscure, so if it doesn't register for you, it doesn't matter, and you just go on. And if it does register, you get to go, oh, hey, yeah, I remember that bad video game and or tie-in novel to a slightly older, better video game. Of course, then they ruin it later by revealing that it wasn't just a cute one-off joke, but a setup for a stupid continuity reveal at the end of the movie to lay foundation for more spin-offs.
One man couldn't have done this alone.
I wasn't there. But if I had been, perhaps I could have saved him.
Kira, you and I will be working much more closely from now on.
I am so tired.
In any case, having now re-entered the official Star Wars canon thanks to Solo, Terrace Kasi may not be the dumbest thing to ever have been created as part of what used to be called the Star Wars Expanded Universe, but by default, it might now be the dumbest thing to have been salvaged and reappropriated from it. Keep in mind, this is a continuum that at one point included Luke falls in love with a spaceship, the Emperor had a second secret apprentice who falls in love with Luke, zombie stormtroopers, Chewbacca dies from having a moon dropped on him, clone Luke, and Force-immune super aliens whose weapons are snakes, so there's some competition for dumb in that cycle.
Okay, are you making some of those up?
Nope, they're all real. Probably worth the Google.
Can't imagine why they decided not to keep any of that. Now look, I'm more than aware that even though the decision by Disney and Lucasfilm to declare the expanded universe non-canonical and instead start a fresh series of sequels in a new continuity is kind of the beginning of the very rational and measured discourse around the Star Wars franchise today, after all, why would you not want to make a whole trilogy around the Force-proof snake staff guys? But even fans who are still genuinely upset that they aren't just full-stop adapting the Thrawn trilogy or whatever into new movies will generally concede that the quality control in the EU was not always the best. So when I call Terrace Kasi the dumbest thing in Star Wars, it's less about its cumulative dumbness than it is, well, representative dumbness. Its existence is a perfect microcosm of everything else that was so very, very dumb, but also, yes, often inexplicably compelling in its own way about the expanded universe. And more broadly, what's similarly dumb about other mythology expansions of things that were not necessarily designed to be expanded in the ways that comes to happen anyway. See, part of the disconnect with Star Wars, the movies, and its own now no longer canonical expansion, is that the movies, like their creator, are very offbeat, original, idiosyncratic, and occasionally subversive of their own genre. Star Wars is a very different thing from what pulp sci-fi space opera was otherwise before, after, or during its debut. It remixes, it invents, it plays around with the conventions and cliches. Luke isn't a typical mythic hero, Leia isn't a typical damsel, Han isn't a typical rogue, 3PO and R2 are sort of a Greek chorus, but they're a bit more like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but not like Shakespeare's version of them, more like Tom Stoppard's reimagined versions from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Its martial philosophy is medieval, its political philosophy veers between neo-monarchism, counter-revolutionism, and anti-imperialism, its spiritual philosophy is vaguely Zen, but in a Southern California 70s way. Obi-Wan is similar to Merlin or Gandalf figures, but processed through the laid-back counterculture interpretation imposed on that archetype by fans in the 60s and 70s. And along with all these new and different takes, a lot of the go-to standard stuff that the genre typically cycled through with other properties just wasn't initially present. So to me, it was always kind of weirdly discordant that much of the expanded material seemed to be in a hurry to fit all of that less original, every other franchise stuff back in, almost like a mandate. Okay, enough with George's weird hippie trip where you blow up the space station with your yoga meditation and feelings. Let's get some badass one-dimensional square-jawed heroes, evil clones of the good guys, sinister dystopian corporations, backup bad guys, and tactical warfighting in there already. And the way Terrace Kasi came to be was emblematic of how some of the silliest things managed to happen in this context. A concept created to force something theoretically cool to exist that the movies had rendered otherwise pointless, that got expanded out from a mere handwave into an overly elaborate mess of nonsense because continuity fixation will inevitably turn good ideas bad and make already bad ideas worse. See, one of the things that tripped up fiction for a long time in the expanded universe was that fans and creators wanted to have the Jedi and Sith and Force powers and lightsabers be on hand to play around with, but the films kind of established a kind of post-Diluvian mythic aura around the whole Jedi-Sith Force paradigm thing, at least in the original trilogy, where these were warriors of a different age who were way overpowered compared to regular people now, and one of them is just going to show up and blow through a whole army, which is perfect in the films because it adds stakes to Luke's journey and makes Vader intimidating, and so on and so forth, and it's just 3 individual movies, so that works out fine because you can space the parts with the Jedi business out, but if you want to expand the universe, it's kind of a scenario breaker because how do the gravity-defying telekinetic laser samurai not just show up and immediately dominate every fight they're involved in? So someone's big idea, first turning up as part of the Shadows of the Empire tie-in novels, was maybe there's like a special martial arts discipline specifically for giving regular people a fighting chance against Force users, which, fine, probably as good an idea as any if you have to do that, but then it really got mainstreamed, as these things go, when someone else wanted to do a Star Wars version of a fighting game a few years later and had to solve the same logic problem. Oh, we'll just say everyone's learning Terrascasi, and that's why 90% of these people aren't just immediately killed. The game, of course, was famously terrible, but it was a Star Wars thing, so of course it got widely circulated, and Terrascasi martial arts, as a concept, became another dumb thing that spread across the whole expanded universe. Fans decided that Darth Maul must have been using it in The Phantom Menace, because where else would he learn to kick with his legs? And that eventually became a canon thing, and it found its way into the RPGs and the stat books, and it got an origin story, complete with a Star Wars version of alien Shaolin monks who developed it to fight the Jedi, and yes, for a while there were even canonical stances and attacks with Star Wars animal names like there are for real-life martial arts, i.e. the Gorak smash attack, or striking Sarlacc and slashing Wampa techniques. Yes, really. Who knows how much sadder this could have gotten had they not eventually been told, guys, enough. And now that it's back, sort of, at least to be a one-off reference and a side prequel, maybe we'll find out. Or maybe not. Either way, that's the weird minor backstory of Terrascasi, aka Anti-Jedi Kung Fu. My personal pick for the dumbest thing in Star Wars. I'm Bob, and that's the big picture.